Welcome back to the channel. Today we are back with some of my pet hates. You must think I have lots of these pet hates. Well, I have 2 or 3 that seem to pop up now and again. And parking on the pavement is one of them. And the reason I'm bringing you back today is because I've seen lots of conversations on Twitter arguing that it's okay. And lots of people saying that it's not okay for various serious reasons. So all the way through this video, let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think that parking on the pavement in general is okay? Bearing in mind it's an offence in London, but I'll come back to that in a moment. Or do you think that it is just obtuse, obstructive, and nobody should be doing it? So let me know what you think all the way through this video. And I'm going to give you some examples of what I've seen on Twitter and just how they might affect other people, because this is a genuine education that lots of people may not realise these things are wrong. Just like me talking about putting feet on the chairs in trains, people might not realise that that's so bad. But when I tell people what I think about it, and that they walk around and they have their feet going in bird poo, spit, dirt, grime, and potentially vomit before they put it on the chairs, obviously, if that made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, it's supposed to, because that's the reason feet shouldn't be on the chairs. But we digress. In this video, we're talking about parking on the pavement and whether it's okay or not. Let me know what you think as we go through. First of all, first candidate up here is this white vehicle driver who's decided that clearly there's double yellow lines on the road outside. Presumably, not necessarily, but perhaps they live at this address on the left-hand side. I don't know. Either way, this is just a photograph for the use of education. And I'm educating you in the public interest here as to why this, I think, is wrong, in my personal opinion. And that is, if you take a look at the gap between the vehicle and the wall to the property, that is almost certainly not big enough for a mobility chair or mobility vehicle or perhaps a pushchair to get through. And if they can't do that, then they can't go around on the other side, which means they are forced into the road, which is unsafe because they shouldn't have to be going in the road. That's the whole point. There is a pavement. Now, as I say, there are rules against parking on the pavement, depending on where you are. If it's in London, it's much more clear-cut. I'll come back to that in a moment. But there are some general rules, which I will also come back to in a moment, about generally parking on the pavement. So looking at the next one we have up here. So for this white one, let me know what you think in the comments as we go through these. Just put white vehicle and let me know. We'll call this one the turquoise. I think that's like a Titan or whatever they call it, blue from Ford. But not just the Ford, but the Mercedes. I think it's a blue Mercedes in the background there. Both of whom have parked on the pavement, again, presumably because they think, well, let's get it off the road. That'll be all right. Let's park here. There's space. Let's do that. But again, if you look between the vehicle and the house or the building or whatever it is, it's not a house. Doesn't look like a house. No one's going to be able to get through there on a mobility chair, wheelchair, or someone pushing a pushchair or pram or whatever. They're going to find it really difficult to get through there. So again, each of these, in my view, are both wrong. This looks like Liverpool. Next one is the perfect example of exactly what I'm saying, if anyone was in any doubt as to what I'm saying. This driver here decided, presumably because you look at the background and the road over there, if they were all parked in the road, everybody will say, then no cars can get down the road. Well, tough, park somewhere else is one way of looking at it. But this driver decided that their way of looking at it was to park on the pavement. And you can see here quite blatantly, proving my point, that this wheelchair user cannot get through. Just absolutely impossible. Even if the lamppost weren't there, and even if the bushes weren't there, still would struggle and would have to trespass on private property to get around. But either way, this wheelchair user is going to have to go in the road if they want to go around this vehicle. Otherwise, go back where they came from. So utterly wrong, in my view. And as you can see from the rest of the photograph here, If these vehicles are all parked on the road, then clearly other vehicles may not be able to get down the road. But that doesn't make it okay. Likewise, this driver here possibly works at this location. I don't know. Or has visited this location, or maybe is going off somewhere else. Either way, it doesn't matter. They are parking on what is clearly, you can see from the tactile flooring here, which is a bit of an insult really, because this tactile flooring is for those who are partially sighted or blind, so they know where to cross. Now, how are they to cross safely when there's a couple of tons of metal in the way of where they're supposed to be crossing? This one, not quite so bad as the others, but there is still an issue with these as well, because this vehicle clearly couldn't park wholly. In fact, there's a sale sign. If you look to the left here, there's a sale sign on this vehicle. But either way, this vehicle is obviously overhanging the footpath. And again, if you look at the distance left for the remainder of the footpath before the road, it looks like a fairly busy road. No wheelchair user or mobility user or pushchair is going to be able to get through there again without going on the road. So again, it's just inconsiderate and dangerous. Likewise, parking in between sets of tactile flooring for partially sighted or blind people to know where is safe to cross, ironically enough, will walk straight into this vehicle that isn't supposed to be there. The tactile flooring will tell them that this is the other side of the crossing. They'll walk onto there. They won't see the vehicle, and doubtless they will walk crashing into this vehicle and potentially get injured. Now, the problem here is, for this driver at least, is if somebody does walk into there because they are partially sighted and they get injured, this driver has a duty of care to anyone else that's using the road. It is a trite point that every road user has a duty of care to other road users, and that includes where you park it. And we'll come back to that in a moment as well. The one that absolutely took the biscuit, which prompted this video this afternoon now, is this one here. This vehicle is clearly had to stop and is now blocking two trams, not just one, two trams, one in either direction. One of the comments on Twitter, I kid you not, said he's not doing anything wrong because there's no box junction on the road. Now, you don't need a lawyer to tell you that causing an obstruction like this is causing an obstruction and is driving without due consideration to other road users, or as most people know it as careless driving, without reasonable consideration for other road users. And that includes trams, because trams, as you can see here, are part of the highway. They're part of the road systems, and they should be kept clear. But as I said, there are various laws that underpin all of these. One of the comments was, well, which bit of the highway code is he breaking? Well, let's take a look, shall we? Let's move to this one here, tramways. There's a whole list of rules for tramways. Rule 300, you must not enter a road, lane, or other route for trams. Take care where trams run along the road. You should avoid driving directly on top of the rails, and you should take care where trams leave the main carriageway to enter a reserved route, and so on and so on. 301, take extra care where the track crosses the road from one to the other. 302, you must not park your vehicle where it would get in the way of trams. Now, obviously, this vehicle is not parked because that would be leaving the vehicle and walking away. However, it also says do not stop on any part of a tram track except in designated bays where this has been provided alongside the clear. When doing so, ensure that all parts of your vehicle are outside the delineated tram path. 303, tram stops. Where a tram stops at a platform, either in the middle or the side of the road, you must follow the route, etc. So there's a whole list of rules here, any one of which could be breached and therefore is causing an obstruction. Why is that important? Because there are some general rules about causing an obstruction. The Highways Act of 1980, penalty for willful obstruction. If a person without lawful authority or excuse in any way willfully obstructs the free passage along a highway, he's guilty of an offence. and a constable may arrest without warrant any person committing the offence. Road Traffic Act 1988. This provides for the breach of construction and use requirements, one of which can be found as here 103. No person in charge of a motor vehicle or trailer shall cause or permit the vehicle to stand on a road so as to cause unnecessary obstruction of the road. So just to recap that, this is what gives rise to the construction and use requirements. And here we have Regulation 103. No person in charge of a motor vehicle or trailer shall cause or permit the vehicle to stand on a road so as to cause any unnecessary obstruction of the road. We also have in the Highway Code a whole list of parking, which includes stopping. There is a technical legal distinction between stopping and parking, but many of these provide you must not, and whenever you see must not, it's usually underpinned in law, which you'll see at the bottom here. You must not stop or park on the carriageway, an emergency area or hard shoulder of a motorway. And then on here, you can see a tram or cycle lane during its period of operation, which obviously this includes the situation we've just looked at because it's clearly in operation in both directions. So going back to this, you must not stop or park on a tram or cycle lane during its period of operation. And there's a whole list of others here. For example, you must not leave your vehicle or trailer in a dangerous position where it causes any unnecessary obstruction of the road. Well, leaving it is, again, a technical question. Have you got out and walked away and left it? That's a technical question there. But again, if there were any doubt, there is further rules here. Do not stop or park, and various ones here, including trams and tramway crossings, level crossings, and things like that. Now, as to the parking restrictions, as I said, I'd come back to in London. These are a legal requirement in London, in that you must not park partially or wholly on the pavement in London, and should not do so elsewhere unless signs permit it. Now, the should not, people just take, well, I can do that if I wish. It's only a should not, so that's fine. Well, it's not fine, because if you cause obstruction, then you could end up in trouble for that as well. And so any of these areas that there are significant problems because of parking on the pavement, you could end up in trouble. And the law for London that underpins this, Rule 244, you can see here, the Greater London Council General Powers Act of 1974, as to parking on footways, and so this provides for London. So I think it's absolutely clear. At the very, very, very least, it's hugely dangerous and inconvenient to those who can't just squeeze past your vehicle. And let's face it, you risk your vehicle being scratched, because if someone has, out of necessity, no choice but to squeeze past your vehicle and your vehicle gets damaged as a result, you can hardly sue them for the careless damage to your vehicle if they've done their level best to get through, but your vehicle ends up being scratched, but you were parking in the wrong place in the first place. I can't really see a judge siding with someone parking on the pavement complaining that their vehicle was scratched because a wheelchair user had to get through rather than going into the road, a busy road. If your vehicle got scratched, then I think you would struggle to blame the wheelchair user for that damage. Not that this is legal advice to anybody that wants to squeeze past a vehicle and cause damage to it. It's not advice in that sense. And of course, there is always a risk that if you do that and you do cause damage to that vehicle, that you will be sued. But like I said, I think if someone is parking badly, they're going to struggle to blame someone for trying to get past to avoid going in the road. So as I said with each of these, let me know in the comments what you think for each of those vehicles. Do you think those are okay? Or do you think we should have a more serious approach to people parking on the pavements? Because overall, it is causing serious difficulties for wheelchair users, many of whom have emailed me to say this is a serious problem. Now, it may not be to many of you watching because maybe you don't walk at all, or if you do walk, you have no need of a pushchair or a wheelchair, and therefore you won't struggle to get past these vehicles. But I, for one, do feel for those that send me these images, like these ones here. I got these ones off Twitter, but if people are struggling to get past these, it is causing a serious problem for them. So, as I said, let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you like the video and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.